Hello. Yeah, well, the guy didn't show up, so if you're here for the debate, then that ain't happening. But somebody suggested doing a Q&A, so thought, why not? I'll do a Q&A instead. This is probably going to go unlisted afterwards, but yeah. We're all hearing me? What is life like in Scotland at the moment? A lot of socialists about. Fairly cold, very dark. Um, yeah, that's about it. There is a John Galt school going on at the moment. I just got accepted into that, so that's pretty fun. It's focused on Scotland. All right. Sue asks, "Is forestalling an aggression?" Sue, by the way, somebody who shows up to the debates. That's a good trait to have. Is forestalling an aggression? Yes. So I suppose I could really do this. Let's just go course libertarian ethics. Nice diagram I've got in here. Goodness me, it's taking a while to load for fucking text. Alright. Fucking proviso. Oh my god, it hasn't fucking embedded. I'll just tell you what, I'll just open up the fucking course on the website. Go to the forward slash corporate rights. By the way, this course completely free, and you can buy the video version for $1 or more on my Ko-fi, which is quite nice. But yeah, so this is basically the forestalling issue. So we have somebody comes along, they homestead just A and nothing else, and there's somebody in C. Why is this an aggression? Why is this disallowed? It's because, so the person who's over here in C, because the person who homesteaded A, they didn't homestead B, so they don't have a right to exclude the person over here from going in here. But they did homestead this ring, so they do have a right to exclude them from going into here. But then we have a contradiction, because going into here implies going into here. So they both do and don't have a right to trespass, to go in there. Right? He both does and doesn't have the right to exclude. The way I block resolves this is you're not allowed to homestead in this way. The way someone like Kinsella or Hoppa would resolve it, and this is the solution that I adopt as well, is that by homesteading all of A, you therefore own B as well, because you are excluding people from getting into B. So you're controlling B in some certain way. And that is the idea. But there is one way where you wouldn't be allowed to homestead A, and that's if there's people both in C and in B, because you couldn't then own everything in B if there's a person in there, right? And that would be an instance of forestalling. You're controlling something that you don't own. It's basically the same as theft, right? If I take your scarf off of you and I'm preventing you from using your scarf in a certain way, then I am forestalling the use of that scarf. Let's see what else we got. He didn't show it. Yes, he did indeed not show. That's why I'm doing just a Q&A, impromptu. God owns us, we don't own ourselves. Well, it's not really a question, but I can comment on that. That's from Prax Beth in the chat there. No, first of all, God doesn't exist. We can go on to brain. God as of the basic axioms. This page, I'll link it in chat, goes over all the different ways in which God just doesn't make any sense. Let's go for omnipotence. Or maybe miracle worker would be... I'll just go here. So yeah, a miracle. What does that mean? Actually, I'll be better. Oh my god, fucking hell. Omnipotence. There we go. So yeah, what it means for God to be omnipotent, right? He's said to be omnipotent. He can perform miracles. A miracle is basically when an entity is acting outside of its nature. But that means it's acting in contradiction to its nature. It's violating causality, right? That's what this is going over. Uh, so that means A is no longer A, because omnipotence doesn't just mean that you're real powerful. You can do a whole bunch of things. It means you can do anything, right? And the Christians, they like to have their little coping sessions over how this is a midway interpretation, and the Christians, they've already blah, 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 blah. But no, they haven't. Fundamentally, they still think you can turn water into wine, that you can turn A into non-A. It's a whole lot of nonsense. Let's see here. What is your Linux environment like? I suppose I could just... Oh, boop. This is new shell, by the way. Best shell out there. With the Starship prompt. Do I have NeoFetch? It looks like I do. Yeah, I'm running NixOS at the moment. It's got its... I can see the argument for NixOS. Immutable builds, like you can just have one config file, and you can just build that, and it's always going to work. But getting certain things to work on it, if somebody hasn't already done the work of packaging it for you, it's a pain in the whole butthole, right? So for certain things, I do also have, like, can't remember the name of it, but it's like a Linux subsystem for Linux things. So I've got like an Arch install on this same system as well. So I can just, within here, I think it's DistroBox, is it? Yeah. DistroBox, I'm just not going to do that. So yeah, I can enter a shell which has access to Arch commands, so I can install Arch programs, anything off the AUR, if it just isn't playing nice with Nix. Are you religious? I'm not. Eddie, last time the guys showed up but refused to argue, wanted a squad to team up, and yeah. This is not the first time I have had somebody just a no-show turning into some sort of shit show. The last time it was guy didn't show up. I showed up like 5 minutes late or something, 10 minutes late, and then he said, "No, I'm not debating you. You're debating these random fucking people who all came in and started like interrogating me." He was like, "No, I'm not doing any of that." Don't see how one could homestead A without homesteading B. Let's... Yeah, you're right there, Eduardo. You can't homestead A without homesteading B. Yes, so Kinsella, as Tratino says, I thought Kinsella didn't think forestalling was an aggression. Hoppe has some weird way of resolving it. Are you referring to Dominique's position? So my one is almost like a Walter moderate block principled compromise. Not really, but it's on in the same vein. I think my theory is the most advanced theory. I don't even know if I could call it my theory. I believe Nye first proposed this to me, but he didn't have an argument for why it would be the case that you'd own B by homesteading A. And I resolved that by looking into Kinsella, who has Deus Ex let exclusion stand principle. So you're excluding from B, therefore you're controlling B. And that's how this is the correct solution, not the blocking proviso. Both of them resolve Dominique's contradiction, but this one does it better. So with Kinsella, I don't think... I'd have to read over him again. But I don't think he has the caveat that if there's people both in C and in B, that then you can't homestead A. It's basically dropping a cage over someone. He might agree with that, I don't know. I would have to read through his stuff again. What if someone owned all the houses and roads around X's house? Can I prevent X from leaving their house by simply banning them from the property around that house? No, because then you're forestalling. You're controlling their house. You're excluding them from property that you don't own. So you have to have some sort of an easement. G Slime says you should look at Stratino's paper he posted today. Alright, I'll check it out. Put it in the Discord chat or whatever. Oh my god, this thing keeps jumping around. Losing my place. This is going unlisted. Do you have any wild conspiracy theories? Let's think. What's sort of the craziest... I don't get that esoteric with the conspiracies. It's mostly just like, the standard stuff, like, not everything at Waco lined up in the exact same way as the official story. Stuff, I'm on that sort of level. I'm not on the level of there are lizard aliens who control the planet Earth, and the planet Earth is hollow, and that's where the Nazis went to. I'm not quite on that level. Do you believe that you can homestead only some aspects of a thing? Another, for example, I can homestead a patch of land, but not the radio frequencies in that area. Yes, so what homesteading, this ties in with the property borders point. You definitely can. If I'm not doing anything with radio waves, I'm not preventing radio waves from entering the area, I'm not filling an area with radio waves, if I'm doing nothing with respect to radio waves, it's basically like that Lord of the Rings separate plane of existence. It's just irrelevant. You're not doing anything with it. So people are allowed to send all the radio waves they want through there. Eternal Siren asks, Zulu, do you think your courses on Austrian econ and objectivism will be ready to punt? Oh, when do you think? I don't know. Probably the next one I'm doing is History of Philosophy. But that's not set in stone. I haven't started that one. Yeah, I've started like the research for it, but not the actual writing of it. But yeah, don't expect it anytime soon. Because a lot of my time is taken up with first the AI art video, which is going to be 2 hours long, more than, and B, I'm working for fee now, so time's crunched. When are you dropping your AI art video? Mickey G asks. When it's done, hopefully by the end of the month. So I'm looking at that. That's seeming less and less likely as the days go on. But yeah, it's, I would say, about 70 to 80% done. So we're getting there. Alrighty. Why Nix over Guix? I don't know Guix. Do you have anything on the praxeology of war? No. Well, I know people are looking into that thing. There's Clausewitz's On War, I think it's called, Karl von Clausewitz. So that's, I know some people think that's somewhat Austrian. So could look into that if you wanted to. Which one is your favorite, The Fountainhead or Atlas Shrugged? I like the mystery aspect of Atlas Shrugged. Sort of like the whole who is John Galt thing. Why are these people leaving? What is this strike going on? Like, very mysterious, whereas The Fountainhead is sort of like, yeah, I can kind of see where this is going. Right, so I would say probably Atlas Shrugged, just because I do like that mystery aspect. What do you think of Hoppe and Rockwell's excommunication of Bloch from the libertarian movement? I think that if you're going to excommunicate Bloch for making the error of thinking that there's such a thing as a group property right, which there isn't, which is basically his argument was, well, the Israelis own this, not the Palestinians, so the Israelis are allowed to exclude the Palestinians. But Hoppe makes that exact same error when it comes to borders. He's saying the Americans own this, not the Mexicans, so the Americans are allowed to exclude the Mexicans. And of course, then a few days later, I pointed out that it's the same error, and it leads to the same conclusions if you follow it all the way through. So if Bloch is to be excluded or excommunicated, then Hoppe should be as well. And of course, what do you know? A few days after I make that point, we have Dave Smith coming in and saying that he wants to send the entire US military down to the US-Mexico border to stop people from coming across. Now, what is it that you think is going to happen when a Mexican decides, you know what, I'm going to try and come across anyway. I want to live over, one of my American friends has invited me over, and they want to hire me for a business, right? And he goes across the border. What do you think? They're going to just ask him nicely to leave? No, they're going to shoot him to death, right? It's the exact same thing. It can very quickly turn very ugly whenever you have these statist exceptions. Do you believe in free will or determinism? Asks Classified. I have an article on this as well, on the brain. Validation of free will. So yes, I believe in free will. I think determinism is basically an incoherent point. It defeats itself, because it's it's asserting a type of epistemic norm. It's saying, well, you should believe um, that you can't choose. And it's like, well, how do you know that you're not in error there? Because apparently, on your premises, you can't deliberately choose not to err. You can't choose to not place feelings over facts or anything else, right? So it can't validate itself on its own grounds. It's gone, right? Uh, Say I own property on the border and immigrants have trespassed. I got to the other side and then, say, a week later, I sue them. Do they have to go back or do you just pay a fee? So you own property on the border and immigrants have trespassed, okay? They got onto the other side and then a week later you sue them. Or do they have to go back to Mexico? I don't see why they'd have to go back to Mexico. There'd just be retribution plus restitution for their trespass. And you aren't allowed to say, therefore, I'm allowed to send them wherever I want. That doesn't follow. Halchin asks, if I were on an island with only one other person, I go to sleep, and I have no property anywhere, does someone who erects a fence around me own the whole island then? Yes, if it's only Crusoe and Friday out there at all, and Crusoe sort of like builds a fence around Friday, then yeah, he owns the outside of that. That follows. How's it going? Asks Ariel Suarez. It's going all right. I'm enjoying the impromptu Q&A. Oops, so Daisies keeps jumping around the chat. How would an ANCAP society deal with nukes? Well, in what specific meaning of deal with? If you want to purchase a nuke because you want to blow up a bunch of people, not allowed. That's criminal. If you want to have it because you're a nuke collector, that's fine. If you want to have it to propel your intergalactic starship, that's fine. You know, there are plenty of legitimate uses. And sort of also, I would avoid saying ANCAP society. Anarcho-capitalism is a legal code. It's just telling you what is and isn't legal. It isn't asserting a specific bureaucratic structure. Are you going to debate that moral particularist that said you were dodging? He wants to debate at like fucking late o'clock at night. And, it's too late, so either at some point our schedules overlap and then there can be a debate, or that doesn't happen. I'm not particularly concerned either way. And also, he did come out and say that he publicly announced that he's retracting the claims that I dodged the debate. He told me that. So, that's settled. I thought John Galt was meant to embody the idea of question, whose answer nobody knows. One aspect of it. I don't want to be too spoilery, but I would say it's more they don't know the answer because they're evading it, right? And that specifically gets like kind of teased out in the book. This thing keeps jumping around. I keep losing my place. If your neighbor is burning trash and the smoke is blowing into your yard, this is aggression. Well, yeah, if they're polluting your property, that's aggression. Rothbard has an article about this. Let's see. Manifesto. Oh yeah, by the way, the guy still hasn't responded to my Discord messages, so good call on not waiting for him. So yeah, he goes over all sorts of different pollution cases. He's correct. Um, would people be allowed to possess ricin under ANCAP law? And if so, to what extent could they use it? Yeah, you'd be allowed to possess ricin if you wanted to, and they'd be allowed to use it for anything non-aggressive. Um, so, I could ingest ricin myself. I own my body, I'm allowed to ingest ricin all I want. And they would be allowed to use it to kill the local rats, which are getting in and annoying them. Right? They'd be allowed to use it as pest control. All sorts of ways you could use ricin. Does the NEP only establish the internal inconsistency of arguing for aggression in a language game, or does it establish an objective truth that aggression is unjustified? I assume you mean, does argumentation ethics only do that? Sort of the way that I see argumentation ethics is, it's just pointing out, hey, look, this is completely incoherent what they're saying. That should already be enough to give you pause. If this position is just glably glooby glooby glab, then you don't have to listen to it. So you're left with the default of positions which aren't glabby glooby gleeby glab, which are ones which are compatible with the non-aggression principle. And it definitely does that. So you have this boundary of justifiability of any norm, and that boundary is Rothbard's razor, as it's called by Dan Sanchez. Bard's razor, and all these you're getting all these lovely article recommendations now. That doesn't seem to be showing up. Try this. Rothbard's red pill. No. Well, I don't know. Find it yourself. Also, Zulu, can you unban me from your objectivist server? No. What are the limits of something constituting aggression when it comes to environmental dirt, such as a factory releasing smoke and other property owners inhaling it in their homes? So the limits are whether or not it is initiating a conflict. So I'm currently able to breathe, and I'm expelling a pollutant, CO2, and presumably some amount of that is going to interact with other people's property. But it's doing so in such a way that is below their level of even being able to perceive it in the first place. No matter how anal they are about it, they couldn't figure out that I'm doing this. So there is no conflict occurring there. I'm able to breathe out this CO2 at the same time as they're doing whatever it is they're doing, right? So that would be the limit. But if you have this factory polluting, pumping out a bunch of smoke, and then it's dirtying the laundry of this little old lady who's hanging it up to dry, she can definitely see that it's like, hey, this is directly in conflict with what I'm trying to use my property for. And she can get an injunction against them to, hey, stop polluting people. And you got to figure out how to do that. And they install these filters in there, and they'd be using a cleaner anthracite coal rather than sulfur coal, because sulfur coal is just way dirty. It just has way more pollution. Because they didn't want to be sued by little old ladies all the time, right? Hold on there for a second. Should we keep the term anarcho-capitalism if we think of it as a legal theory? Isn't it confusing for outsiders? Well, I think outsiders have spent this long 0 seconds of their life considering any issue in law, any level of philosophy in anything is going to be confusing for them. So I don't think we should be caring particularly much about what's confusing them, because everything fucking will. Have you studied economics in uni, or are you self-taught? Self-taught. I wouldn't dream of studying economics in a Scottish university. I would rather tear my eyes out. Any thoughts on a collab with fellow ANCAP libertarian Mentiswave? Well, I did do a collab with him. Let's I do that. Nope. Where the fuck is it? Oh, damn. Yeah, this video. Why socialism is literally impossible. That was a collab with Mentiswave. Collaboration in a light sense. We linked off to each other's videos, There wasn't really like, I wasn't saying, oh, you should put this in your video and you should word these things different. Like, we weren't collaborating on the script writing or anything. So this is still a Liquid Zulu video, and then when it links to it's still a Mantis Wave video. They aren't like jumbled up or anything. Crownland. Oops, daisies. Video. My god, the YouTube is just way annoying with just putting all these pop-ups on my screen. Hey Zulu, big fan. After reading Objectivist theory and anarcho-capitalist philosophy, what should one do to become cohesive with the philosophy? Assume an innocent student archetype. So, I would say just keep reading theory if you want to get more and more adept at these things. You should read more about it, and you should, if you want to get on that next level, start writing about it as well. Start trying to teach it, and then it will reveal your own holes in your knowledge. Just start writing stuff out and seeing where it's taking you. And it's like, oh, I wonder which conclusion this will lead to. And then maybe it doesn't end up leading you there. But now you know that, right? This is Hazlitt's advice, I believe. Do you believe in transhumanism, and should we try and be immortal? You should certainly try. I see no problem with transhumanism. I'm augmenting myself right now by being able to speak with people who are miles and miles and miles away from me, right? I don't see any problem with extending that to augmenting my own body. Yeah, I try and live as long as possible, right? That's a good thing. Does the possession of nuclear weapons in private hands increase the likelihood of their use? I would say no. If we just look at the evidence, the only group ever that has used a nuclear weapon to kill anybody is the state. Did it twice. Right, so I would say the private sector has a far better track record in this front. How do alien primitives get a right of way from through A from C to B? They never went. So let me see if I understand this. How do alien primitives? I'm not sure that's essential at all. Just get a right of way through A from C to B. They never went through A. Okay. Right, well, that would be if you have block solution, then that would follow, because they can't homestead all of A. If you have my solution, that would only ever follow if there's people who are already in B and in C, and then they would have the right of way, because otherwise it's forestalling. Zulu, do you have religious friends and throw their Bibles into fire? Well, Ayn Rand talks in the background. No, because I don't believe in violating property rights. How much have you read of Chicago School and/or monetarist theory? Zilch. I don't want to read their books. Yeah, I can't think of anybody that would count as worth reading. What are your favorite videos of other snack tubers? And maybe your own? So think about this. I think this one was pretty good. I like the tick response quite a lot as well. On theoretic grounds. Let's see, what could I... I'm trying to think. Oh, I know. This video. Two-parter. Banger. Very good. You should all watch it. Also, MRH Legacy. Yeah, the video on money. Barter to Bitcoin. That one was very good as well. Oh, we got a super chat. Thank you, Joseph Barch. Hello, Liquid Zulu. I hope your day is going well. Well, it's going a little better now. Thank you. Can I heart that? There we go. Can you be a Christian, Muslim, any religion? and still be consistent with ANCAP ethics. Yeah. Unless it's like what counts as a, which I would say you can be religious. You could believe that there's such a thing as miracles and whatnot, whilst agreeing that aggression is bad. But I would say for certain specific religious texts, there are going to be contradictions in there, but that's for other people to find out. I haven't read really any religious texts. What is arguably the least worst argument against anarcho-capitalism? It's like, I want to be slippery, I would say, it would be Anglo-libertarian's argument, because it's purely semantic. It's nothing to do with the concepts. He isn't rejecting the legal theory at all. He's just rejecting it that it's a good label, that anarchism applies to it. So that'd be the least worst. Sue asks, what's your view of paleo-libertarianism as a strategy? I think the paleos in general, I can't think of anything worthwhile. It's very much going the speed limit, right? In Malice's words, it's like I'm hearing a lot of, oh no, it's just bad in practice. Taken too far in practice, the old conservative line. But it's fine in theory. It's like, no, that's not the correct way to attack these ideas. And then it seems like of the paleo crowd, they seem to just be completely infected with neo-prags. Now maybe there's non-pragmatic paleos, but Rothbard probably. But modern times, I'm not seeing many of them. What are your thoughts on the inconsistency of collective ownership? So yeah, basically the idea is that if we assume, for the sake of argument, that a group of people, A through Z, commonly own a stick, what do we do then about a conflict between A and B over the use of that stick? There are two options we can have. So let's say A wants to use the stick for spearfishing, and B doesn't want to use the stick for spearfishing, right? Either the spearfishing happens or it doesn't. So our legal theory could say A should win, or it could say B should win. Those are our only two options. If A should win, that means he has a right to control the stick, and so he owns it. But B doesn't have a right to control the stick, so he doesn't own it, which would contradict our presumption that B does own it. So that option's out. So let's try B. The spearfishing shouldn't happen. That means that B owns it, but that also means that A doesn't own it, which also contradicts our presumption, because we presume that everybody in that set own the stick. So whatever option you pick, whichever way you slice it, you're getting a contradiction if you assume collective ownership. And one easy way to sort of tease this out is imagine it's Crusoe and Friday on an island, and the property theory they operate under is that both Crusoe and Friday own everything in the whole universe. Well, it becomes pretty clear then that there are no property rights at all, right? They're going around, and the second they come into conflict, like, how would they resolve it? They don't know how. Right? So to the extent that you have group property, you have no property whatsoever. What do you think of people calling themselves Zuluians instead of Rothbardians? I mean, people can call themselves what they want. I think it's fine if somebody wants to, pay homage to me. I like that. Yeah, I mean, just pick whatever term best describes your position. I just call myself an anarcho-capitalist and an objectivist. An argument is either correct or... Oh, sorry, that's not for me. Why is stealing a candy bar to stop the planet being destroyed not like the human shield scenario? in that you may take candy as a means of self-defense. Alright, so for the self-defense scenario for human shields, let's go here. Human body shield, here we go. So when you're allowed to take a human shield you're not allowed to take a human shield. You're allowed to shoot through a human shield, right? If somebody is wrapped themselves in your neighbor's stolen quilt, and your neighbor's like, "Don't shoot my quilt! Don't shoot my quilt!" You're allowed to shoot through the quilt, because shooting through the quilt is required to stop the aggression, right? The caveat with this is that you can't. It has to be between the aggressor and the aggressee. You can't just randomly decide I want to include third parties in this situation. If the aggressor said, "Hey, I'm going to shoot you unless you rape that baby over there," no, you're not allowed to suddenly go off and exclusion is only justified against the aggressor. That's this part. You can't just include bystanders in this whole conundrum at your whim. The video is the only MRH video I have had to watch from him. Yeah, for the money video, I assume. Are you a materialist in the sense that you believe only physical matter exists? I can't think of anything non-physical. I'm not really sure even what non-physical would mean, because you might think, well, light, that doesn't seem very physical. I can't like touch light. But then, in a different sense, you could say, well, it is physical. It's a physical phenomenon, right? It's you study it with physics, so I don't know what there would be which would be non-physical. But I certainly don't believe in some sort of Platonist world of forms or heaven or anything like that. Louise. What are the necessary conditions for a parent who wants to legally renounce custody of their child? Who should pay for the move? How long does a parent have to wait before evicting a child? So, if they want to renounce custody of their child, they have to inform the potential adopters. The person who would pay for the move would be those potential adopters, or actual adopters at this point. And once they've said, yes, I'll save that baby. How long do they have to wait before evicting a child? 0. That doesn't mean that they're allowed to just do so arbitrarily. They have to leave it on the church doorstep, as it were. How do you think Javier Milei is doing in Argentina? Good, bad, neutral? I think he's doing pretty good. What is your answer to the luck egalitarianism? Not sure what that means. I saw you had members-only content, like sneak peek videos from the AI art video. Can you upload them to Ko-fi too? Yeah, sure, I can upload them to Ko-fi. They're not very long or anything. I assume Ko-fi can handle it. Thing is, I don't want to be, because they are just very like, hey, here's a real sneak peek. So I don't want to be like selling this for even $1. It's not worth $1, I don't think. It's just something to keep the members going, because I feel like they're giving me money for the memberships. I gotta give them something. Yeah, don't at all feel the need to be purchasing a membership. I try and be quite clear with that. Hey, this is just. But I do generally try and shift people towards Ko-fi as much as possible. But some people like doing it on YouTube more than Ko-fi, and that's fine. I want to give them a way to do it. I mean, if you want access to it, if you've like given me money on Ko-fi already, at like any point, and you want to see any of this, then yeah, just send me like a DM on Ko-fi, and I can just give it to you or whatever. But I wouldn't be like putting this up in the in the shop or anything for people to purchase. I think that would be untoward. Uh, how do you view the pragmatic approach to libertarianism through involving oneself with the state to decrease it? It's all derivative. The fundamental strategy is changing the philosophy. And once you change the philosophy, descendant from that, you get the resulting legal system. So all of this stuff like agorism, right sectarianism, all this different stuff, it's all derivative from the fundamental strategy, which is to change the philosophy. When are you opening your Discord server again? I mean, I suppose I can like send a link into the chat here if people want to join. Expires in 7 days. Sure, whatever. I'll have one open for 7 days. Whoop. What do you think about the ideas of Curtis Yarvin or Machiavelli? Machiavelli contradicted himself by writing The Prince, because his counsel there was to pretend that you are a believer in rights and all these different things. Rothbard has a good article on this. Yes, on the duty of natural outlaws to shut up. This is basically, back in the day, he already anticipated all these types and tears them a new one. So I would definitely highly recommend this article. It's one of his better ones. What are your thoughts on value theory in the name of the Austrian subjective theory of value? For there to be a total integration with the rest of philosophy, the terminology has to be consistent. So if we have it that subjective, this means when it's dealing with preferences at all, when it's to do with a person at all, which is weird, think about it that way, then it's fine. If it's meaning the primacy of consciousness, though, then no. It just depends on what is meant by that. What are your thoughts on agorism? I mean, if people want to like grow turnips in their garden or whatever and then sell those, I don't have a problem with that. It's just it's kind of overstated when people are acting like it's some ideology unto itself. It's not. It's an anarcho-frogism. I'm an anarchist, and also I like buying drugs. Right? Why is ChatGPT not a rational agent? Because it cannot form concepts. If it turns out that there is no compromise in regards to abortion, whether evictionism or otherwise, would pregnancy itself be understood as inherently an immoral method of gestation? No? I don't see how that follows. Since the debate with a radical reviewer ended abruptly, did he ever concede that he couldn't resolve its contradiction on collective property? I don't know, I'd have to rewatch it. Alright, I was wondering what the exact conditions of owning property through homesteading. Mainly on the topic of... So the way you homestead is you erect an objective border around the thing. That is... Where the Flip. I'm setting property rights. The criteria property board is this section. That goes over what exactly you have to be doing to homestead. Aggression is the initiation of conflict. Can I contractually encumber the property and lose it if you violate it? Is that valid? Why is that not collective property? I contractually I don't know what encumber means. Do you attend the university? Not anymore. And what does the ability to form concepts mean, and how do you verify this ability? Let's go over. Right. Formation. Objective. This page, basically. There are other ones as well. Yeah, how it ties into free will. It's in the operation of your reason. Why do you use Doom Emacs in your debates as opposed to something like a standard note-taking app? I just like Doom Emacs. I like org mode very much. It's got all my keybinds. I can move around. I can move around a lot. You know, I can do whatever I want to do. Yeah. Scroll down all the way, right? I can just do whatever I want to do, just on my keyboard. I can program it all in Lisp or whatever, and it has everything I need for note taking. I wouldn't be like, what else would I use? Like Notion? No, I don't want to be having all my notes locked up in some proprietary garbage. The only other alternative would be Obsidian, but I like to keep my Obsidian vault to just philosophy stuff. Just this. This is basically it's an Obsidian vault on the back end. I don't want to just clutter this with random debate flows or anything. Right? Because they would all just be going in here if I was using Obsidian for it. Or I'd have to have a separate vault, but then, like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I've already got Emacs open all the time for writing stuff, so might as well use it. Vim or Emacs? Emacs. You know, we're in the fucking 21st century. We can handle having a GUI, I think. And like, for instance, you could not display this on Vim. It's not possible to display this on Vim. Let's look at this. This is one font. This is a different font. And look at that. Different sizes as well. Not possible in a terminal. You just can't do that. And that's org mode. And I very much like org mode. I believe there is some amount of org mode implementation in Vim. It's not as good as Emacs. And I like org mode a lot, so I'm using Emacs. If my neighbor built a skyscraper and prevented my eyes from looking a specific star because from the angle from my property, is that aggression? Is there a conflict? Now I want to use my own eyes. No, that's not an aggression. There isn't. Like, I don't think you're owed the view from your house. If you want to own that section of sky up until that star, you gotta prevent people from building there. You gotta exclude people from building there. What operating system do you use? I went over this earlier, but I suppose I can mention it again. Neo Fetch. Use NixOS. There's my Neo Fetch if you're interested. When did you first start becoming? Oh, I might as well just have something nice on screen. So let's see bonsai. E maybe? Nah. See bonsai infinite. No. The fuck is this? Ah, screensaver mode. Of course. There you go. I suppose if probably wrap it up about here as I see any last minute questions coming in. But yeah, it was pretty fun. I enjoyed it, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Hopefully, the opponent shows up next time. What unresolved problems or disadvantages does anarcho-capitalist ideology have? Well, anarcho-capitalism on its own doesn't have metaphysics or epistemology or anything like that. So that's why it's got to be integrated with objectivism. How does the NEP deal with those who don't believe in it? The NEP doesn't deal with anybody. It's just either you're aggressive or you're not aggressive. Aggression is bad. So it's kind of irrelevant if they don't believe in badness, you know. But yeah, anyway, I'll see